Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Ellen, and in this video I am going to talk to you about every single movie that I watched in 2021. Not my thoughts on them, just what they were and what I rated them. And then we're going to go into some statistics about my movies and my movie watching experience of 2021, which by the way was not great. So my goal was to watch 105 movies and I only watched 92. So it wasn't, you know, like a great year of movie watching. I will say there were some months I only watched one movie. I was not good at watching movies this year. And also the movies I did watch, most of them I didn't really like. I only really gave 2 movies 5 stars. There are some other movies I gave 5 stars, but they're Hallmark Christmas movies, so we don't count those. So that's something I definitely need to preface before going into my ratings of movies. I watched a lot of like Hallmark, Lifetime, just like those types of Christmas movies this year, which definitely helped with the number of movies I watched. I think I watched more of those than any other movies, but I rate those very differently than normal movies that I watch. Those are strictly, I have like a rating system for those movies, but basically if it makes me feel the Christmas spirit and it's super enjoyable, it gets 5 stars. That's about it. I don't care about anything else when it comes to those movies. I did not come out with a wrap-up for the movies that I watched in October, November, and December, so I didn't get to tell you what movies I watched then and really go in depth of my thoughts on those movies, and I won't be doing that. I just feel like at this point it's too late for that, and I already have way too many other videos that I want to come out within like the beginning of this year that I'm not gonna have time for that, so that's not happening. But you'll at least get to see my star rating for those movies. And maybe some of those movies will be in my top 10 of the year. And so there I will give you my thoughts. But anyway, let's just get right into it. And let me just tell you the 92 movies that I watched in 2021 and what I rated them. So the very first movie that I watched was A Silent Voice, which I gave 2 stars. Charming, which I gave 1 star. Love and Monsters, which I gave 4 stars. Finding Ohana, which I gave 4 stars. To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Always and Forever, Lara Jean, I gave 4 stars. The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, I gave 3 stars. Yes Day, I gave 2 stars. Blithe Spirit, I gave 3 stars. Chaos Walking, I gave 3 stars. A Week Away, I gave 2 stars. The Mitchells vs. the Machines, I gave 4 stars. Finding You, I gave 2 stars. Friends, The Reunion, I gave 3 stars. Bo Burnham Inside, I gave 5 stars. Cruella, I gave 3 stars. In the Heights, I gave 4 stars. The Sweetest Thing, I gave 3 stars. Luca, I gave 4 stars. The Bros, I gave 4 stars. Shadow in the Cloud, I gave 3 stars. Black Widow, I gave 3 stars. Space Jam: A New Legacy, I gave 2 stars. Gunpowder Milkshake, I gave 3 stars. Escape Room 2, The Tournament of Champions, I gave 3 stars. The Tomorrow War, I gave 4 stars. Snake Eyes, I gave 3 stars. Jungle Cruise, I gave 4 stars. The Green Knight, I gave 1 star. Don't hate me. Resort to Love, I gave 2 stars. The Kissing Booth 3, I gave 3 stars. Annette, I gave 2 stars. Free Guy, I gave 4 stars. He's All That, I gave 2 stars. Out of My League, I gave 3 stars. Afterlife of the Party, I gave 4 stars. Cinderella, I gave 3 stars. Wish Dragon, I gave 4 stars. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I gave 5 stars. Everybody's Talking About Jamie, I gave 4 stars. Dear Evan Hansen, I gave 2 stars. Freaky, I gave 4 stars. Muppets Haunted Mansion, I gave 2 stars. The Last Duel, I gave 4 stars. Night Books, I gave 3 stars. Boyfriends of Christmas Past, I gave 4 stars. The 9 Lives of Christmas, I gave 5 stars. Me, You, and Christmas Trees, I gave 4 stars. The Santa Stakeout, I gave 4 stars. Christmas in Harmony, I gave 2 stars. Dune, I gave 4 stars. Christmas Sale, I gave 3 stars. Gingerbread Miracle, I gave 3 stars. Love Hard, I gave 3 stars. Spencer, I gave 3 stars. Eternals, I gave 3 stars. Next Stop Christmas, I gave 3 stars. A Christmas Treasure, I gave 3 stars. My Christmas Family Tree, I gave 4 stars. An Ice Wine Christmas, I gave 3 stars. A Picture Perfect Holiday, I gave 5 stars. Ghostbusters Afterlife, I gave 4 stars. Nantucket Noel, I gave 3 stars. The Princess Switch 3, Romancing the Star, I gave 2 stars. Red Notice, I gave 3 stars. A Christmas Together with You, I gave 3 stars. Baking Spirits Bright, I gave 3 stars. Christmas at Castle Heart, I gave 2 stars. Christmas in Tahoe, I gave 3 stars. Editing Ellen here, I completely forgot to add a movie. It goes right here in this spot, but it is called Welcome to the Christmas Family Reunion, and I gave it 3 stars. The 9 Kittens of Christmas, I gave 5 stars. This next movie has 2 different titles, so I don't know which one to use, so I'm gonna say both. So it's either called A Christmas Village Romance or Christmas at Maple Creek, but I gave it 3 stars. A Very Merry Bridesmaid, I gave 4 stars. Sister Swap, A Hometown Holiday, I gave 3 stars. Single All the Way, I gave 3 stars. A Royal Queen's Christmas, I gave 4 stars. Encanto, I gave 4 stars. Tick Tick Boom, I gave 4 stars. A Castle for Christmas, I gave 3 stars. Sugar Plum Twist, I gave 4 stars. It would have been 5 stars if it was a lesbian romance, which is what I was hoping for. The Christmas House 2, Deck Those Halls, I gave 4 stars. Spider-Man Homecoming, I gave 3 stars. Spider-Man Far From Home, I gave 4 stars. 'Tis the Season to Be Merry, I gave 4 stars. The Christmas Train, I gave 4 stars. Toying with the Holidays, I gave 5 stars. Spider-Man No Way Home, I gave 4 stars. Candy Cane Candidate, I gave 2 stars. Mistletoe in Montana, I gave 3 stars. Royally Wrapped for Christmas, I gave 2 stars. Zoe's Extraordinary Christmas, I gave 3 stars. Being the Ricardos, I gave 3 stars. And then the last movie that I watched, Coming to America, I gave 3 stars. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to stats, and as I'm always gonna start with, the amount of movies I watched within each month so we can figure out what was my best month, what was my worst month. This one's pretty easy. It's pretty clear and obvious to see. My best month was December. In December, I watched 25 movies, and then my worst month is tied with February and April, where I only watched 1 movie. But that's what the bar graph looks like for the movies that I watched. Now here is the amount of minutes that I watched. It looks very similar. My worst month though is definitely April, because the movie I watched in April was shorter than the one that I watched in February, which makes April the worst month. It was a 92-minute movie. And then again, best month, December. Nothing matches December because I watched way too many movies in December. So that means the total amount of minutes that I watched in December was 2,445. So the total amount of minutes that I watched for the entire year was 9,502 minutes. I don't know what that is in hours. I only kept track of the minutes, not the hours. So you figure it out. I'm tired of doing math. So now that we've finished with minutes, that seems like a good segue into length of movies. So here's that pie chart. So most of the movies that I watched, and I feel like this is because of the Hallmark and Lifetime Christmas movies, they were all within this sweet spot. Most of the movies I watched were between 50 minutes and 100 minutes, with 52% being that amount. And then 45% of the movies that I watched were between 100 and 150 minutes. And then 3% were over 150 minutes. So there were some that were quite long. So the shortest movie that I watched was Muppets Haunted Mansion with 52 minutes. Very short movie, also not that great. And then the longest movie that I watched was Eternals. It was 157 minutes. I was surprised. I thought Dune was gonna be the longest movie that I watched, but this beat it by 2 minutes. All right, the next stat we're gonna look at is the format in which I watched these movies. Here it is. So there were 4 different ways that I watched movies: in the theater, digitally, on TV, or physically. Like I owned a physical copy of the movie and I watched it. So the most was definitely digital, with 41% being digital. And then TV was 34% for second place. Those TV movies are literally just the Christmas movies that I watched. So you can see the Hallmark and Lifetime Christmas movies took up a lot of my watching. And then 21% were in theaters and 4% was physical watching. Now let's talk about the genre of the movies that I watched. 47% were romance. Most of that, again, Hallmark Christmas movies, but also romance is probably my favorite movie genre to watch from. And then in second place with 15% is action, which I am surprised. I'm a little bit surprised, but also not surprised because I know the movies I watched, and I feel like I did watch a lot of action movies this year, but at the same time, I'm like, I typically don't watch a lot of action movies, but I guess I really got into them this year. But usually second place is comedy. Comedy is actually in fourth place with 11%. The one that beats it is fantasy with 12%. So what is happening with my movie watching? I don't mind actually, because most of the like fantasy and action movies that I watched were all like high ratings for me. Most of the romance were low ratings for me. And then we've got drama with 10%. Adventure is 2%, and then horror and documentary are 1%. So let's go on to ratings now. And here's the pie chart for ratings. 26% was PG-13, and that I feel like is usually what my watching is. And coming in at a very close second with 25% are movies rated TVG, which are just the Hallmark Christmas movies. Can you tell I watch a lot of those? And then 17% were rated TV PG, which not all of them, but most of them were the Lifetime Christmas movies. Like I said, I watch a lot of Christmas movies. I'll definitely try and do better this coming year, so it's not just most of my movie watching being Christmas movies. Although I still have yet to watch a single movie this month. Ugh. 12% were rated PG. I feel like this sounds like I watch a lot of like movies for young people, which maybe I do. And then 10% were rated R, 4% were rated TV MA, 3% were rated TV 14, and then we have two 1%, and they were both, one of them was TV Y, and the other was not rated. All right, release year. This one's not that interesting because 85% of the movies I watched came out in 2021. That's typically what I do. I typically watch like the newer movies and not so much the older movies, so that's typical. So the oldest movie that I watched was in 2002, and that was The Sweetest Thing, which was an interesting movie. Not what I thought it was gonna be. And then I think, I'm not certain on this, but I think the most recent movie that I watched was Spider-Man No Way Home. It was released towards the middle of December. Now let's talk about directors. So the gender of the directors, it's mainly a male-dominated industry, so most of the movies I watched were directed by men. I did watch a few that were directed by women, and then there was one that I could not, for the life of me, find anything out about the director. All I could get was a name. And it was like one of those names where it was like, it could be a guy, it could be a girl. I don't know. But that's that. And now on to the nationality of the directors. So this one's kind of hard to read. But the most important thing I think to get out of it is that 52% were American and then 24% were Canadian. I do want to try and watch from more directors that are not just American or Canadian. I'm even having a tough time reading this one, so that's all I'm gonna say because those are the only two I can really pick out. The rest, very tiny amounts, but I do want to do better at this for 2022. But I probably won't. All right, is the director POC? Mostly no. This is just not shedding a great light on me. And again, there's that 1% I don't know. I couldn't find anything out about the director. But if we break down that 16% of being POC, here's all the POC that I watched. 53% were Asian, 33% were Latinx, and then 13% were Black. Now, was there LGBTQ plus representation in the movies that I watched? Mostly no. It was mainly absent in the movies, so that's not okay. But 18% of the movies I watched did have some LGBTQ plus within the side characters. 4% it was the main character, and then 1% there was multiple. But breaking down that LGBTQ presentness within the movies, most of the movies I watched were gay. And then 23% were lesbian and 5% gender fluid. And then the last stat that I have are the star ratings. Most of the movies I watched this year I gave 3 stars, so not a very great watching year. Next to 34% were the 4 stars, 16% were 2 stars, 7% were 5 stars, and then 2% were 1 star. So really not a great year for watching movies. So that makes my average 3.26 stars, which is not good, if I'm being honest. That's pretty low. I like it to be around 3.6, 3.7. That's like a good spot to be in, which is what my reading was in. So again, go check out that video. But yeah, so it was not a really great year for movie watching. So let's hope 2022 will be better. And that is it. Again, I will put a link down below to the book stats of 2021 so you can check that out. And I will see you guys later with more videos. Bye.